Once upon a time, in a peaceful little kingdom, there lived a girl named Cinderella. She was as kind as she was beautiful, with a heart full of love and a gentle smile that could brighten even the gloomiest day. But life had not always been kind to her. Cinderella's mother had passed away when she was very young, leaving her father to raise her. He adored her and did his best to give her a happy life. One day, everything changed. Her father remarried, bringing a stepmother and two stepsisters into their home. At first, Cinderella hoped they might become a new family, but it soon became clear they had no such intentions. From the moment they arrived, her stepmother looked at her with disdain, and her stepsisters, Drusilla and Anastasia, were consumed by jealousy.
"She thinks she's better than us just because she's pretty," sneered Drusilla one day as Cinderella worked in the garden. "Not for long," replied Anastasia, tossing her hair dramatically.
Cinderella's life became harder when her father was called away on a long journey. Without him to protect her, her stepmother wasted no time asserting control.
"You will move to the attic," she declared one morning, her voice sharp. "And you will take on all the chores of this house. A girl like you needs to earn her keep."
"But why?" Cinderella tried to protest.
"No!" snapped her stepmother.
And so, Cinderella carried her few belongings up to the cold, dusty attic. It was dark and bare, with only a small window that let in a sliver of light. She sighed, brushing a tear from her cheek, and began her new life. Days turned into weeks, and Cinderella worked tirelessly. She scrubbed floors, cooked meals, and sewed gowns, all while her stepmother and stepsisters lounged about, making endless demands.
"This floor is still filthy," shouted Drusilla one day. "I need my dress altered again," whined Anastasia. "You're so slow."
Cinderella didn't complain. She found solace in small moments, like the chirping of birds at her window or the scurrying of mice who became her unexpected friends. At night, when the house was silent, she would creep downstairs to the fireplace. She would sit by the dying embers, warming her hands and dreaming of a life beyond the attic walls. One morning, the sound of trumpets echoed through the village. A royal messenger stood in the square, unrolling a grand scroll.
"Hear ye, hear ye? The prince invites all eligible young women to a ball at the palace. He shall choose a bride from among them."
The stepsisters rushed home, squealing with excitement.
"We'll be the most beautiful girls at the ball," declared Anastasia. "The prince will surely choose one of us," added Drusilla.
Cinderella watched quietly, her heart heavy with longing. The days leading up to the ball were filled with chaos. Cinderella worked tirelessly, sewing gowns and preparing baths for her stepsisters. On the evening of the ball, as they stood before the mirror, Cinderella gathered her courage and asked,
"May I go to the ball too?"
Her stepmother turned to her with a cruel smile.
"You, in those rags? The prince is looking for a bride, not a servant. Finish your chores and go to bed."
The stepsisters laughed as they swept out the door, leaving Cinderella alone. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered to herself.
"If only my parents were here."
Suddenly, the room filled with a warm, golden light. Cinderella gasped as a graceful figure appeared before her.
"Don't cry, my dear,"
said the fairy godmother, her voice soothing.
"I'm here to help."
"Help me?
Cinderella asked, her voice trembling.
How?"
The fairy godmother smiled.
"Bring me a pumpkin and some mice, and you'll see."
Cinderella hurried to the garden, grabbing the largest pumpkin she could find. She brought it inside along with her tiny mouse friends. With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother transformed the pumpkin into a glittering carriage, and the mice into elegant white horses.
"But what about me?"
asked Cinderella, glancing down at her tattered dress. The fairy godmother waved her wand again, and in an instant, Cinderella's rags turned into a shimmering gown. On her feet were delicate glass slippers that sparkled with every step,
Now go!
said the fairy godmother.
But remember, the magic will fade at midnight.
When Cinderella arrived at the palace, the grand ballroom fell silent. All eyes turned to her as she stepped inside, her gown glowing in the candlelight. Even her stepmother and stepsisters stared in awe, unable to recognize her. The prince, standing at the top of the staircase, descended with purpose.
Who is she?
He murmured to himself. When he reached Cinderella, he bowed deeply.
Will you honor me with a dance?
Cinderella nodded, and the two began to waltz across the floor. The music swirled around them, and for a moment, it felt as if they were the only two people in the world. But the clock began to chime midnight. Cinderella's heart sank. She pulled away from the prince and whispered,
I'm sorry, but I must go.
Wait!
He called after her, but she was already running down the grand staircase. In her haste, one of her glass slippers slipped off. The prince picked it up, determination in his eyes.
Find her, he ordered. I must see her again.
The next day, the prince's men went door to door, searching for the girl who fit the glass slipper. When they arrived at Cinderella's house, her stepmother locked her in the attic. But Cinderella's clever mice friends snatched the key and brought it to her. She raced downstairs just as the prince's men were about to leave.
I would like to try the slipper.
She said. The stepsisters sneered, but when Cinderella slipped her foot into the glass slipper, it fit perfectly. The prince himself arrived moments later. He looked into Cinderella's eyes and smiled.
It's you, he said. Will you marry me?
Tears filled Cinderella's eyes as she replied.
Yes!
On their wedding day, Cinderella and the prince stood on the palace balcony, waving to the cheering crowd. Her stepmother and stepsisters watched from afar, regret heavy in their hearts. And so, Cinderella's kindness and resilience led her to a life of happiness, proving that true beauty shines from within.